London, one of the most linguistically diverse cities in the world. With more than 8 million babbling citizens, every single day over 100 different languages can be heard here. As distance becomes an inconvenience rather than an insurmountable obstacle, globalisation means communicating in only one language just isn't good enough. In this hive of lingual activity, hundreds of people spend hours each day learning languages the traditional way. You won't find a translation app in these classrooms. But as accuracy improves, maybe they shouldn't bother. The question is, are the apps up to the job? Well, there's one way to find out. Let's put these apps to the test. Arzu here is going to be speaking Turkish into the Google Translate app, and we've got David who's going to be talking to the iTranslate app in Italian. Both the apps will translate them into English, then we can see how much sense this conversation actually makes. Good luck.
Bugün öğle yemeğini beraber yiyelim mi?
Let's have lunch together today.
Va bene, dove preferisci andare?
Is it okay to wherever you want to go?
Bildiğin güzel bir İtalyan lokantası var mı?
Do you have a nice Italian restaurant mobildigen of wrist pain?
Bildiğin güzel bir İtalyan lokantası var mı?
Do you know a nice Italian restaurant?
Sì, c'è un ristorante che fa pizze giusto qua vicino.
If there is restaurant making pizzas right with neighbouring.
Great, well done. Well, it didn't go that smoothly, but hopefully they're going to turn up at the same place at the same time. Type the words you want translated instead and you'll probably get a better result. So inadequacies in voice recognition must shoulder some of the blame.
The system has to recognize the words that you're pronouncing. That's called voice recognition, and that's a really hard problem in itself, independently of translation. So you got two really hard problems. What seem obvious for people, we do it naturally without thinking, recognizing words out of a sound screen and putting them together in sentences and then translating them into another language if you know that language. Very, very hard. The two really hard problems for computers.
And grasping a phone as you chat is hardly natural, so maybe there could be some wearable tech to the rescue. This is Google Glass, which is basically a connected computer which you can wear on your face. It's got a built-in camera, microphone and speaker, so it should provide you with everything you need for a bit of translation. Now, when I put these on, I may feel rather silly, but it looks to me as though I can see a screen over there the other side of the room. Of course, what you're looking at is a piece of glass, but this is a better idea of what I can see. You may have heard about some of the camera features, but what we're interested in now is the translation. So, if I want to do a basic translation, this is what I do. OK, Glass, Google, hello, how are you, in French.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Via the bone conduction speaker, I can now hear that it's bonjour, comment allez-vous, and it's written there in my screen. Pretty cool, and that's just a prototype. Glass and many translation apps need to be online to work though, and that data could end up being pretty expensive if you're abroad, when you're likely to need translation the most. Well, here are a few apps that could solve the problem. The Samsung S4 comes packaged with its own built-in S-translator. Now, this is a pretty standard translation app, but it also comes with an offline phrasebook. Now, that phrasebook has categories aplenty and it works in 8 languages. You can add your own favourite phrases to the mix too, so if you know you'll be visiting the Arc de Triomphe, you can get ready for it in advance. But if you're after something a little more flexible, then Google's Translate app now has an offline mode as well, and it should be able to translate anything you can think of. Each language comes as a 160 megabyte or so download though, so you'll need quite a bit of phone storage free if you're planning a world tour. And in our tests, it wasn't quite as good as the online version. How about if you can't even read the language you want to translate? Well, you might want to try this, which can translate road signs and other text. So you've got your device to understand you, and it's translating when you actually need it to. But even in this perfect scenario, you might still be a bit disappointed with what comes out. Odds are you'll get the gist of it across, but why can't we just have a natural conversation?
When you translate from one language to another, you have to make all sorts of decisions about how to interpret words and phrases in your own language and in the language you're going into. And those decisions, if you don't make them properly, will produce garbage. In the first days of translation, what they would do is they take an English sentence, translate it into Russian, and then use the system to translate it back to see how well the system is doing. So they took the sentence, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak," and they got back from the Russian, "The vodka is good, but the meat is rotten."
So how does it all work? If you wanted to learn a new language, you'd probably start by learning a few basic rules and words. Well, computers aren't so different, except that big players like Google and Bing don't look at language books, they look at the whole internet. This basically means looking at billions of documents that have already been translated by humans into different languages. That's stuff like official United Nations documents, books and bilingual websites. Throw all that data together and banks of computers can start to spot patterns that reveal how a language works and how it relates to other languages. The more of these patterns you know, the more accurate your translation should get. The problem is that some language combinations don't have much data to go on, so translating English to German is going to be much better than English to Swahili, for example.
The amount of data that we have access to now as a society, if you think about just all of the information that exists, that's now accessible and connected. So the smarter we are at looking at that and understanding the patterns between that data, the better off we're going to be.
It's basically the problem of encoding the totality of human knowledge about the world and the way language interacts with it. And that's the whole problem of how to represent human intelligence, general intelligence. Will we ever solve it? That's the same as asking, will we ever understand how the human mind works?
So for conversation at least, I think it's going to be a little while before one of these replaces one of these. I'd better get to work.